So far, in this Corporate Governance in Action series, we have addressed the most pressing corporate governance concern facing Hong Kong and mainland China today. In this last episode, we step back from the immediate issues to ask how important ethics are in corporate governance. Some may suggest that businesses should not concern themselves with ethical questions. The sole criterion to consider is whether a business creates value for its shareholders. For others, ethical values such as honesty, fairness, and transparencies are the heart of the whole corporate governance endeavor. We start today by asking our guests what role ethics should play in corporate governance.
No, I think the ethical behavior is important. I mean, I think if a company, it's important both because it contributes to a company's reputation and its brand and its standing in the community. And I think looking at it from a position of enlightened self-interest, if a company wants to survive and do well, then it needs to be seen as a trusted counterparty. I think if a company is seen as dishonest, people aren't going to want to work for it, people aren't going to want to do business with it. I mean, there'll always be some people in some companies that operate in the grey areas and that make money out of corruption, make money out of cronyism and so on. And I don't think you're ever going to stop that. But if you're talking about the larger companies or the companies that want to grow large within their market, then and to be seen as internationally and world-class companies, then I think that ethics has a very strong role to play.
Ethics is something that we have to practice rather than to preach. Of course, we can preach ethics, but then the point is you have to practice. Deep in our heart, I would say most of us can differentiate between ethical conduct and unethical conduct, deep in our heart. But then when it boils down to behavior, it is a different story. So therefore, having professional knowledge, having professional experience are not enough to have ethical behavior. We have to have courage to act in accordance with our heart. That is the most important thing.
Ethics clearly is has an important part to play in corporate governance. I don't think necessarily I would say that they are one and the same issue. There are a broader range of issues that are taken into consideration when you're looking at overall corporate governance issues. It would entirely depend where the good ethics were held. If the tone is set properly from the top with good ethical behaviour, then the company would, one would hope, have a good corporate governance environment. If you've got good ethics at the lower levels within the company's management, but poor ethics at the top level, then unfortunately the captain will steer the ship onto the rocks. In my view, ethics is an essential part of corporate governance. With ethical behaviour, with good corporate governance, you'll build a stock market, you'll build listed companies where investors have confidence, and that's a positive effect. If you have bad corporate governance, bad ethics, you end up with a situation where confidence is lost, and that ultimately will result in higher costs for investors, in the losses they sustain, and a higher cost of capital for companies.
Coming back to the point of good corporate governance is doing more than required by the letter of the law or the regulation. That's where ethics does come in, and you can have many instances where it's a grey area. It's not clear whether you do one thing or another, whether you have to do it or not do it. I think ethics comes in as if there is perhaps some uncertainty. A decision is made to either err on the side of caution or do the decent thing rather than it's probably not required, so we won't won't bother. Is the glass half full or half empty? I think it's really all just a part of education, learning that behaving with the right set of standards and values is going to stand you in better stead than behaving badly. And hopefully will make you a more valuable employee if you can actually do something proactive and demonstrate something that's displaying good practices rather than bad practices.
I think that part of corporate governance does not have anything to do with ethics. So in other words, knowing what's going on, making your decisions, or getting the right basis of information in order to make your decisions has nothing to do with ethics, because you could be running a drug cartel and you'd still need to have the same understanding as you would if you were running a drug company, a legitimate drug company. So from that point of view, there are parts of corporate governance which are nothing to do with ethics, are about running a business, knowing what your business is doing. I think ethics, however, overlays the next stage of corporate governance, which is the decisions to be made in light of the information and the way you apply the company, the ethical considerations which governs the way governs the decisions you make, and the way the ethics in which you apply, you decide how you disclose what you disclose. To that extent, the two are absolutely interlinked. If you don't have the right ethical standards, you won't have high standards of corporate governance.